Hello everyone, welcome back to Ansarkari. So, taking up important topics from 1st of November. So, firstly, we see that US puts 19 Indian firms on sanctions list, and the reason is that it is believed those companies and those firms has helped Russia with materials and technology, given we see Russia-Ukraine war is going on. So this is the new stress point in ties before US presidential polls. We are seeing sanctioning nearly 400 entities and individuals across countries for enabling Russia's illegal war. Now, stating here that it is Russia's illegal war, even we can't say that Ukraine is justified here. So we can't say that either the parties or even the proxy players who are helping, even that is justified. Then how can you justify US again supporting Ukraine in the, oh, sorry, Israel in the Israel Hamas war? And when it comes to India's interest, we see that so far our stand has been neutral. We haven't sided with either of the players in the Russia Ukraine war or even be it Israel Hamas war. So we demand for peace. We stand by peace. We stand by restoration of peace as quickly as possible with uh, like conservation and the protection of human rights. So India's neutral stance, definitely there would be some cost, some trade-offs. So it is in the form of the sanctions which are being put by US on these firms. So electronic or aircraft parts, most Indian firms on list, they supplied dual use goods. Now here, since again USA is the largest economy, the largest one, the largest power, and we're talking about the current geopolitics dynamics. So, and also we are talking about that how it is like misusing its power when it comes to the influence of dollar as a currency. That is why we see that de-dollarization or internationalization of rupee is important for us. And days after India China Doval and Suvillan discuss regional security. So we've been talking about the updates related to the recent agreement between India and China. We have agreed to again creating buffer zones and patrolling and sharing of more information bilaterally as far as transparency and accountability is concerned and are maintaining again peace along the line of actual control. Now, even if again, when we're talking about the entire war scenario in Russia-Ukraine war, so still if we are like still into imposing sanctions and all, so when are we going to talk about peace? When are we going to talk about bringing this war to an end, coming to a resolution, coming to a common ground and a level playing field? So it is on again these similar lines. So the entities which are based in other countries like Kazakhstan, Kyrgyz Republic, Turkey, UAE, they have also been sanctioned. So India is exporting machines, auto parts, steel and aluminium products, internal combustion engines, pumps, and other items to Russia. That is increasing. Now the question is that uh, definitely first challenge is how to track that the exports from India, how they are being used or if they are actually being used or not being used in this entire war is one question. So engineering goods is a major category, and the exports in engineering goods has nearly doubled to Russia. So total exports to Russia has surged by 40%, and India, we talk about the major imports from Russia has been the crude oil imports. So even before the beginning of this war, the share of Russia was 1% in terms of being crude supplier to India. Now it has increased to again close to 40%. And earlier also, when this war started, it began, we saw that the sanctions imposed by US on Russia, they didn't materialize, or the intention behind those sanctions didn't materialize. So in a way, Ukraine's trade was not majorly hampered because of those sanctions. So LIDAR is very important from the perspective of even prelims. So it's a remote sensing system which has helped discover a lost Mayan city in the jungles of Mexico. So with the help of LIDAR technology, so it stands for light detection and ranging. It's a remote sensing technology and it is using light in the form of pulsed laser, which is measuring the range or the distance using the sensor. So it is mounted aboard like an aircraft, which is flying over the Earth in the atmosphere. And through that laser projection, we are able to measure the time taken by that laser to reflect back or reach back to the sensor. So it is being used to create high resolution 3D models of ground elevation at the same time, which are more realistic in appearance. Like when we're talking about the VR and AR. So that kind of 3D effect and accuracy is also up to 10 centimeter. So it is calculating light pulses, two-way travel time is calculated and processes this information with the GPS. So somewhere it is also, we see the role of GPS, which is Global Positioning System of USA. In India, it is the Indian Regional Navigation Satellite System, or which is also called as NAVIC. So even when we are talking about like more advancements or more developments in India's weather forecasting system, so even LIDAR or the Doppler radar system are also being used in India by IMD. So that is one use that has been used. Also, it is used for useful for archaeologists in terms of preservation, conservation. Like it is helpful in terms of detecting any cracks in the architecture or in the infrastructure. Who conducts US elections, how votes are cast, and then they are counted. So it is we are seeing DRE system was it was being used. So now there is reduced or declining reliance upon it. So firstly, when you're talking about how the elections they are organized, so mandate of the US Federal Election Commission is there, like we have Election Commission of India in India, ECI. So they have the mandate to enforce and administer the federal campaign finance laws, and it does not extend to actually conducting the election. Like, okay, so it is not actually conducting elections as we have ECI conducting elections in India. So this is one difference. And it is because US has highly decentralized election system which they follow. So how is it working? The US Constitution does set some parameters for elections to federal offices. All elections are administered by individual states. And yesterday also we talked in detail about the electoral college, how that is decided. So we are talking about the importance of the swing state. So even small marginal shifts, that it seemed to be a major decider in the election results. So talking about the pattern or the trend in voting this year. So November 5 is the election day, but early voting is ongoing in several states. So unlike in India, voters in the US, they may vote on the ballot paper also, or even electronic systems, depending on where they reside. So there's a mix of both. So there's no uniformity here. And also, like in India, we are talking about shifting towards simultaneous elections. So that is going to bring more, we can say, synchronization and more coordination as far as conducting the elections is concerned. So three primary voting mechanisms are being used in USA. One is the hand-marked paper ballots are being used, and like this is seen in Philadelphia-based non-profit that tracks the elections administration in the US. 70% registered voters they reside in this jurisdiction. Second method is paper ballots filled using the ballot marking devices, and third is this DRE, which is the direct recording electronic systems, which were once seen as the future of voting in the US. So direct recording electronic system would be somewhere similar to the EVMs that we are using in India. Now, there is reducing reliance on this as far as US election is concerned. So, the types of like DREs in the US which use different kinds of interfaces, like there are buttons and touch screens. They come some are integrated with VVPAT, like we are having these in India. So this is to bring again more transparency and again building more trust in terms of the elections being carried in a transparent and fair manner. So Louisiana is the only state in US which 100% of the voters will be voting using the DREs without VVPATs. So we can say in a way that India's election exercises it is more vast, it is more diversified, and it is more advanced also in terms of the methodology being used to conduct it. So this is one major differences that we can talk about. And so how is the preferred method of voting changed in the US? So butterfly ballot is one thing. In Palm Beach country that had been misaligned, leading to many voters accidentally casting their vote for the wrong candidate. So these things are very, very rare in India. Concerns around hacking, foreign interference ensured that DREs they were never been able to gain the trust of the public. Allegations of Russian interference in 2016 elections and the election of again Donald Trump further drove many Americans away from these DREs. So this was the main reason. So again, living in a globalized world, the influence of social media plays important role here, and that is why talking about the self-regulation of firstly the social media company, the big tech companies, and uh, how regulation of online platforms is significant, and at the same time the safety and security of data, because then we talk about the Cambridge Analytica case. So how are votes counted here in US? So both hand-marked paper ballots and the ballots which are filled using these BMDs, they are counted using the optical scanners. So given the far more rigorous standard for the ballot production now than in 2000, this process largely goes on without hitches. So after counting and tabulations complete, states they have varying periods of like they have the time to self audit the results, which can be done manually or through machines, and states they have provision for a recount which can be again ordered depending on the margin of victory. So ultimately election officials they must issue so-called certificates of ascertainment showing the official final vote, and this year the deadline is 11th of December. So here we can have we can say more clarity, because there are certain questions which are asked like upon the difference between, for example, the political structure between US and India. So here it is particularly about the elections. Biological diversity rules notified to boost research, promote ease of doing business. So more research and development is again one of the major areas we always emphasize that we should focus more upon research and development, even as an overall, when we're talking about broader from the perspective of Indian economy, we say that the percentage of GDP, which is at merely 0.8% right now, for research and development should be increased. So this is particularly for the biological diversity. So biological conservation and preservation also, research and development is important. And rules have been more simplified, which will be promoting more of ease of doing business. Now, important acts and laws are the Biological Diversity Amendment Act 2023. So this amendment, under the cloud of criticism, has notified the rules to regulate as well as facilitate access to and use of biological resources in the country. So, Biological Diversity Act was amended last year to promote ease of doing business in the field of traditional medicine, promoting research, cultivation of Indian medicinal plants, and also decriminalized offenses and violations of the law. But during all these amendments, the core thing again should be that we are not, in a way, leading to damaging the biodiversity that we have. So, ensuring that it is happening in an ethical and more transparent manner should be the way ahead, even if we are talking about that it will be promoting more of ease of doing business. And even in the pharma industry, like we talk about that generic medicine is again one strength of Indian pharma industry. So at the same time, we talk about more developments in the Ayush sector also. So this would be promoted through these amendments. So National Biodiversity Authority is there. It is the state biodiversity boards are there. Then biodiversity management committees are there at the local level. The three-tiered system is what we have here. And the local level committees, they are established by the local self-governments itself. So key functions is to administer firstly the National Biodiversity Fund, which is there, and it is collecting money for the use of traditional knowledge, the biological resources, following principles of equitable benefit sharing. Then rules are also they laying down the process of seeking the approval of the NBXS. So it also spells out the process, what is also all of that is taken care by these three-tier levels. So one of the key points of criticism against this amended act was providing Ayush practitioners and the traditional knowledge holders an exception from paying access and benefit sharing. So this was an exemption. So why was this exemption given should be the thing that we should look for यार कि उनको क्यों exemption दिया जा रहा है from access and benefit sharing. क्या इसकी वजह से कुछ misuse हो सकता है of the results out of the research and development, or the more power that they enjoy with these amendments in the act. So both Ayush practitioners and traditional knowledge holders. So ABS is the money which is paid to the local communities such as Adivasi communities for their efforts in protecting the medicinal plants and herbs. So local community and community participation plays very, very important role in the conservation of the local heritage. So one positive is that it has decriminalized almost all the offenses. So almost all the offenses, not all the offenses. And then penalties are also there ranging from 1 lakh to rupees 50 lakhs. So entire, again, it is impacting the entire ecosystem which exists as far as biological diversity or its usage, or again, preventing it from getting commercialized is concerned. And appeals are again under the jurisdiction of NGT. Now, why 1.5 degrees Celsius goal has become unrealistic? Simple reason would be again, the countries, they are firstly not on the same level playing field as far as achieving the targets is concerned, be it related to climate finance, be it again acknowledging and accepting the common but differentiated responsibilities. So if we are not on track to meet our targets on timely basis, definitely we're going to miss, or this goal of 1.5 degrees Celsius will be becoming unrealistic. So more than 9 years ago, the world had pledged to slash the emissions drastically. So it was, we can say it was a pledge, but not been able to materialize in our real lives. So it has failed miserably to do so. So we have here the data and the assessments made in 2023 and 24. So projected emissions in 2025, according to 2023 assessments, would be 53.2. And so projected emissions in 2030, 51.6. So not major changes or diversion in the assessments in these 2 years, but we are seeing that there is going to be increase in terms to, like, with respect to the previous year, what would be the emissions in 2030. So more than 50% in 1990. So this again we had gone through few days back also, that there's been 50% increase in the greenhouse gases emissions compared to 1990 levels. So unabated rise of emissions. Still, we are again talking about that even in the COP in Azerbaijan, Baku would be focusing more upon again having an agreement on climate finance. So we are still struggling with that itself. No quick relief from warming. So here we can look at few facts like WMO is one important authority. So reported that concentration of greenhouse gases in 2023 had touched new peaks. So CO2 concentrations now reach 420 parts per million, more than 150% of pre-industrial levels, the 1780s. Then we have one emissions gap report is there. It is talking about if the current trends of deployment of clean energy sources it still continues, and some additional efforts was made to cut the non-carbon dioxide emissions, such as like methane, which is considered to be again more potent than even carbon dioxide. So there's 70% chance that emissions will decline in 2024. But again, 2024 is also gone and we're not able to materialize the time that we have in hand. And then UNFCCC, so Paris Agreement or the nationally determined contributions or the SDGs that we have, different targets that we talk about, or even the IG targets, which is about the biological diversity. So IPCC is another. We have the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change. It is a United Nations body and advances scientific knowledge about climate change recommended. So it recommends at least 43% reduction should happen in global emissions over 2019 levels in 2030. So almost half the level. And also, if still we are not able to have a common ground on the targets or the process or the methods that will be following, and if after that also we are not on time as far as realizing those targets is concerned, the temperature might increase by 3 degrees Celsius. So which will be having huge repercussions. So only marginal improvements are seen as of now. 10,000
Also, as we saw in the worldly wise yesterday, that diplomacy to be effective, it needs to be credible. So climate diplomacy also becomes an example of that.
right. So 10,000 civil defense volunteers to join the fight against bad air. Civil defense volunteers. So what is going to be their role here? Like 10,000 former civil defense volunteers, many of whom worked as marshals in public buses, but the services were terminated last year, soon be deployed on ground to implement measures taken by Delhi government. So it can be one of the long-term measures, but this is only limited to implementation. What about the role of the administration in terms of like providing the finance on timely basis? That would be again the backward channel that is important. So it is again, it is going to, or it should be a comprehensive approach, a multilateral approach when it comes to dealing with air pollution in Delhi, or not just Delhi, but even in other metropolitan cities. The schemes like the odd even scheme, it has again, it was for short-term basis. So we've been discussing like Grab 3, we're talking about the rooms. So hotspots have been identified, additional locations where the pollution levels are high, they require monitoring. So the volunteers, or this is one, we can say one innovative step, or even creating the green war rooms. So everything should be done from the perspective of long-term implementation or long-term view and targeting. How we will be cutting down the greenhouse gases emissions or the major reasons and the causes behind bad air. And also cooperation between different states would also be very important, because then when we talk about the reason behind like increased stubble burning, so it should be in a coordinated or cooperative federalism should be seen to be operating. So whether again this is a political step or not is also another question, that 10,000 civil defense volunteers. So Hindustan Aeronautics Limited is a Maharatna company and first defense PSU to get the coveted status of. So HAL is going to play very important role in terms of self-reliance in defense manufacturing, Atmanirbharta, or promoting Make in India in aerospace and defense with renewed energy and dedication. So journey of growth to a Maharatna excellence status. So 1940 May it was founded. 1963 became Aeronautics India Limited was incorporated. So earlier it was Hindustan Aircraft Limited. 64 HAL formed by amalgamation of two companies, both these companies, Aircraft and Aeronautics Limited. Then 2000 it got a mini Ratna status. 2007 promoted to Navratna, and then 2024 Maharatna status. So it is ranked 29th globally, and global footprint exporting to 30 countries. And it is again, there are license officers in London and Moscow, marketing office in Malaysia. Manufactured over 4,300 aircrafts, 5,500 engines, overhauled over 12,000 aircrafts, 36,000 engines. So very, very important player, PSU company in terms of defense manufacturing. So what are the newer ways for mental well-being of students? So here we see IIT Bombay find newer ways for this. So like samosa and chai with the faculty at hostel, sorry, leisure events, organizing more such events, making student residents to engage with each other beyond. Then a regular scope of interactions would be there. Everyday stalls for animals or art and yoga therapy should be organized on the campus. So these are some of the new activities by student wellness centers at IIT Bombay for mental well-being of students. So in a way, we can say that this would be cutting down the screen time, or particularly which is we see, we just keep scrolling on social medias in itself, and again, getting more distracted and distortion. So more of like interactions and talks with each other with the students would be proving us or giving us more positive results in terms of the mental well-being. And leisure events would be again, as we're talking about like the role of the local art and literature or the folk dances or the folk music, even that has this power or the potential. So a new post has been created, co-chair person who will be responsible dedicatedly looking at finding ways of proactively helping the students deal with the pressure. So it shouldn't be only at again higher education level. We should be seeing implementing such interesting steps at the school level also. So organizing events with the professional psychologists, the counseling needed by students. So samosa chai with faculty, तो वहाँ पे जो professional या जो like formal interaction नहीं होगा, so that would be giving us more comfortable space. And once in a while also in dinner in the hostel mess by faculty amongst all. So most discoveries even today, they are combination of serendipity and of searching. So in this context, we can talk about the the discoveries or the measures or the still we are if we are work in progress as far as the space sector is concerned. Yeah, we are still searching for again, like for example exoplanets की जब हम बात करते हैं, या even still we are not having clarity about the origin of this universe. We have like one is the Big Bang theory, but uh, we don't have as such complete information about this. So even that is one example, or even when we're looking towards an individual also. So our entire life is like about making most of discoveries or searching or serendipity, like what is the core thing that we are thriving for which we are working so hard, or what should be the goal in our life. We take time to realize this thing that it is ultimately the internal peace and the happiness, our own satisfaction. So there are different ways of doing it as well. So that's another aspect. And then in terms of like STEM sector, we can talk about new discoveries being made, or even in the space sector when we're talking about like uh, building up more of reusable launch vehicles. So that is the thing. Or even when we are off late talking about promoting space tourism. So now the questions is related to its safety, making it more of cost effective. So that is also related to the discoveries and what more is needed.
So we can say when we are focused and the unexpected outcomes are happening along with the intentional searching, it leads to novel insights. जो scientists and explorers हैं, they encounter an unexpected finding. But with further searching and further working towards a specific goal, we reach towards new surprises and groundbreaking
Like
insights.
when we're talking about the discovery related to gravity, so that was
Hmm.
also like sudden. It happened, or that question came after that fall of the apple.
Yes.
So Kodo millet and elephant deaths in Bandhavgarh. So what is Kodo millet? So Bandhavgarh Tiger Reserve climbed to the elephant death toll climbed to 10 after Madhya Pradesh Wildlife Department informed that two more tuskers have died. So so these are the four ranges.
Majorly जो कोडो विलेट होती है, it is cultivated in the central and southern regions of India.
So toxicity has been observed in their stomach. So it might be because of the elephants have consumed the kodo millets. So this is like a wild variety, or it is related to the agricultural plantation, liver tonics, and then multivitamins and general antidotes being given. So toxic infection, kodo millets. So villagers, they have claimed that the act was not intentional. So it was actually cultivated. Fungal infections and then ingesting the harvested kodo millets. So now this raises the question also that particularly in such areas, in the core areas or the wildlife sanctuaries or the reserve areas where farmers are into agricultural practices or the tribal community. So assessing or allowing which types of crops are safer for even the preservation, the safety of the wildlife in that region becomes important. A path of their own. So, recent visit by German Chancellor Olaf Scholz visit marks a new era of pragmatic cooperation. So, science and technology, in which India, Germany marking their 50th anniversary collaboration. So university to university and institute to institute collaboration would be more strengthened. New agreement between IIT Chennai and University of Dresden is the latest amongst these. IIT Indore has agreements with 9 technical universities, Germany, IIT Mandi. But question is why only IITs? So strong bilateral ties, and in this also one aspect was giving more visas to Indian students so that they have the opportunity to study in Germany. That was one area of cooperation. Then the nature of German economy after COVID-19 crisis in Ukraine and its growing concerns about the China necessitated the diversification. So it is not just the countries, the littoral countries in Indo-Pacific which are concerned about the the unilateral actions by China, but even like Germany or even talk about the UK also. So China plus one alternatives. So even without ascribing China plus one or the alternatives to China's motivations, Germany believes the time to engage a rapidly growing India with its immense talent pool, demographic dividend, high growth rate, besides the functioning democracy. Keyword is functioning democracy is now. So given this, we've been talking about past 1 week also that given the geopolitical dynamics, how they are changing, the situation is becoming more challenging globally. So despite all of these factors or the external factors, particularly, Indian economy is still growing with a fast momentum, and that is in a stabilized manner. So that gives us again a leverage or the opportunity even to attract or to strengthen relations with other countries. So other countries are looking at this entire situation as an opportunity to strengthen their ties with India. So focus on India's skilled labor strategy. These are the few areas. Green sustainable development partnerships. So renewable energy is another area of cooperation, like green hydrogen roadmap, a whole of government approach to critical and emerging technologies, skill development, innovation, and the expanded green urban mobility partnership. So even like Germany, we see that it is one of the biggest player globally in the automobile sector. And there's also the first train in the world which was functioning on the fuel cell is also successfully running in Germany. So we can collaborate more on these areas which are of strategic importance. So even at the civil society level also, the visits saw larger interactions between like universities, IITs, NGOs, think tanks, and business groups. So it builds the momentum. And also in this context, as we are seeing different countries, like Germany is also one of them, where we see that the aging population will be rising very soon, or the countries like Italy and France, where the population is declining overall. So the role of Indian diaspora is going to play, or it is going to reshape in this sense. Firstly, the demand for it is increasing, like even in case of Germany also. So India's demographic dividend advantage is now not just limited to Indian borders or the Indian territory. It becomes an opportunity for India to leverage this at global level. Real demographic crisis. So when talking about the southern states like Tamil Nadu, Andhra Pradesh, Karnataka, Kerala, so countering the low fertility rates and rising aging population, because we saw that during 1970s, these South Indian states were able to control their population. So now they are firstly facing this challenge of aging population and low fertility rate, like the total fertility rate in India is right now is 2.1, and which is now very close to the replacement rate of 2. So once the total fertility rate starts declining or it goes below the replacement rate, the population will also start to see a downfall. So declining fertility is a global phenomena that we are seeing. Now, that is also related to increased women autonomy. We're talking about women's bodily autonomy also. It is a right of the women. Now, increased access to education, contraceptives, and reproductive health care. So these are the reasons behind declining fertility. And It is a cause of celebration also and concern given the today's changing demographics. So one part of solution that was suggested earlier was to give again financial incentives so that the fertility rate increases, which we are seeing again in other countries as well, like in Japan or in China also. So demographic crisis is the thing. So it has disastrous consequences like compromised economic growth, increased healthcare cost or out of pocket expenditure because aging population would also be increasing, supporting the elderly or the disadvantage of being outnumbered by opposing the ethnic or the political groups. So real crisis of ecological overshoot that threatens all life on earth driven by climate breakdown, biodiversity loss, species extinction, resource scarcity, conflict, poverty, food insecurity and more, and is mostly absent from media and the policy discourse. So obsession with growth is being seen. चाहे population हो, consumption हो, economics हो या फिर materialistic things हो. So there is obsession with growth. So it is at the core of our existential crisis. So pronatalism, we see that this is phenomena where women are pressurized to produce more babies. So ultimately, जब population control की बात आती है, then also it is women. Then अगर we see that fertility is declining or there are risks related to declining population, again pressure building upon the woman is being seen. So why we again get stuck on these patriarchal things and the ideas? So here we can talk about the, like for example, creating aging population as a burden, converting that into an opportunity, जिसको हम silver dividend बोलते हैं. Because from the perspective of like creation of wealth, they are one of the most wealthiest section of the society. So financial planning can play important role. Even like government is running different schemes. Like there is Sage portal, which is talking about integrating these the old age people with the private firms in terms of giving them more flexibility or using their experiences in terms of getting jobs. So how flexibly or easily they can work. So connecting that them with the private sector is the main objective. And also ensuring the social security benefits, but in that also particularly we are integrating that with financial planning so that the burden on the public sector gets reduced or on the government. So even from the perspective of concerns related to fiscal consolidation is one thing, because increased social security benefits, increased subsidy when we're talking about even reducing the out of pocket expenditure in healthcare through schemes like Pradhan Mantri Jan Arogya Yojana, because now the 70 plus population has also been included as a beneficiary under that scheme. So how everything is interrelated, it is interdependent, everything is impacting each other. So there are multiplier effects, there are spillover effects of every step. So it has to be in a properly planned manner, and that's how we can convert them as an advantage. So we see that the concerns related to the family income or the public infrastructure for all of that, like even caregiving economy, we talk about we need more trained personals. We see lack of trained personals. So it raises questions about their safety also when it comes to the caregivers which are there. So in their training becomes very important, having adequate data about them so that we have transparency about how the entire thing is working is important. So it is like a silent pandemic no one wants to speak about. And this is absent from our public infrastructure and services also. So there's huge potential even in labor economy, like caregiving economy. So even political will becomes very important as a factor here in terms of driving things or the direction in which we are moving. Progressive policies must be adopted, respect the biophysical limits of our planet. Policies strengthen the social safety nets, wisely reallocating the resources would be required and free up the financial resources to care for elderly, growing number of people. displaced by even conflict and climate change happening simultaneously. What we need is a radically new imagination of care and social justice. So, Shariat Council, not a court. Husband must get legal stamp on the talaq. So definitely it is like it's a council, it's a private organization, not a court. And so if we can talking about link it with the need to have a uniform civil code as well regarding the civilian matters. So the focal points of the case in the Tamil Nadu, the Shariat Council is issuing a divorce certificate to the husband in 2017. But legal stamp होना चाहिए. This does not make the thing legal, completely legal नहीं है. अगर शरीयत काउंसिल को डाइवोर्स सर्टिफिकेट इशू कर रही है तो so it was seen to be a shocking thing. So he said the council had accepted the husband's plea for triple talaq and tried to mediate but blamed the wife for not cooperating. So only the courts duly constituted by the state as per the constitution can deliver judgments. And we look at other judgments. So Delhi High Court particularly. So Delhi University elections से related है, directs 15 DUSU candidates to clean up the campus mess. Notes most are from the Buddhist studies but have nothing to do with the Buddha's teachings. So that is not being actually being materialized. Court allows minority category student to attend the classes at St. Stephen's amid seat allocation row. And High Court to hear BJP MLA's plea or CAG reports on liquor duty, pollution, and finance. So these are some of the major areas and the role of again independent judiciary in India. So that's all for the day. Thank you so much for joining us on Ansarkari. Stay tuned for further detailed discussions in the upcoming sessions.